Riza squeezed her son's hand. Crouching in the bushes on the edge of the woods in the dark would frighten any little boy. Being chased by a fearful mob multiplied that feeling times 10, times 100. 1 times 10 is 10. 2 times 10 is 20. 3 times 10 is 30. Her mind latched on to the things that comforted her. Numbers, logic, science. Things a woman shouldn't know. Things a woman could be killed for. Things that not only she could be killed for, but her child, her innocent child. It was as if an invisible hand squeezed her heart. She could not lose her son to this mob of witch hunters. Voices shouted nearby. Lantern light shot through the dark, dozens of lanterns. They'd never make it. How much further to go? As she pushed through the shrubs, she dragged her exhausted child with her. "Mama!" he wailed. She clamped a hand over his mouth. "Tranquilo, little one." She knelt on the soft grass and gathered him in her arms. "We are almost there. I need you to be very brave for me. Can you do that?" The boy nodded and clutched her tightly around the neck. "Oh, Paura, Mama!" She whispered into his blonde hair. "I know, Caro." She stood and held his hand tightly. "Come, we're almost there and then we'll be safe, I promise. Promesso." But she didn't know if her promise would come to fruition. She'd only finished crafting the machines in the last few days. The first one had been an abject failure. It had turned into a pile of green mush within moments. The formula was not quite the same as she'd remembered. Her experiments had caught the notice of the wrong people. Not the friendly nuns who'd taken her in, a lost, pregnant woman with no husband, but the religious fanatics, who increasingly feared the dark arts and blamed innocent women as the perpetrators. In the last year, their fears reached a fever pitch, and focus turned toward the Donna Strana at the nunnery. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why did she speak a foreign tongue? Why was she seen late at night in the woods near the river? Was her child a child of the devil? Although the nuns had welcomed her into their community years ago, they'd questioned her strange clothing and mysterious arrival. But when they'd learned of her ability to read and write, they'd found her quite useful. So despite the suspicions of those outside the cloister, they had given her very much-needed sanctuary. For within her mind resided the secret to returning to her life and the father of her child. "Lei è andata così!" one of her accusers bellowed. They were mere steps behind her and her son. The pounding of her heart filled her ears until she could hear nothing else. Branches scratched at her face and tore at her rough woolen dress and the kirtle underneath. Ahead, she saw the machines lurking in a copse of trees, blending in with their green leaves. She dropped her son's hand, leaving him in a marshy meadow dotted with moonlight, and raced toward them. In the soft hull, she pressed a hidden button to expose a hatch. "Come, Caro, come! You must get inside!" Riza beckoned her child forward. The rumble of the mob crashing through the woods made her breath hitch in her throat. She'd seen what they'd done to others accused of being witches. Torture, burning, horrible things. But a child? What would they do to an innocent child? The horror was too much for her mind. "Non voglio!" he said, planting his feet. "No!" There was no time to waste, no time to cajole. Her voice grew sharp, and she hated herself for it. "Inside! Ora!" She grabbed him by the arm and dragged him into the machine. He was afraid of the dark, and the machine appeared to be a black hole. "No, Mama, no!" Her son fought against her. "Sit!" She shoved him into the single seat inside the machine and strapped him in. The soft, flexible safety harness melded with it, as if it had always been a part of it.